Katie. Thank you for being the juror for Food for Thought 2022. We are really excited to have you here to talk about the show and announce the awards. I will introduce Katie really quickly. Katie Commodore is a practicing fine artist exhibiting nationally and internationally. She attended the Maryland Institute College of Art, graduating with a BFA in illustration. She spent time abroad, then returned to school, attending the Rhode Island School of Design, where she earned her MFA in printmaking. After 14 years in Brooklyn, Katie returned to Providence to reside and is now adjunct faculty at her alma mater and Clark University. As any artist could appreciate, making art is seldom a full-time profession, and her professional career includes working as a studio manager and the artist/personal assistant for Maya Lin, the designer of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. She has also worked at several museums, including the Aldrich Museum in Connecticut, was a major domo for a boutique PR firm in New York City, and as the administrative director of Crux LCA, a cooperative of Black XR creatives and producers that focuses on Black storytelling and creating a foothold in the burgeoning vocabulary of new media, of VR, and creating Black wealth. She is currently represented by Untitled Space in Tribeca, New York City. So could you tell us a little bit about your art and what it is that you do?
I do erotic portraits of my friends that are very focused on them expressing what makes them feel most powerful and sexy and celebratory of their existence, and sometimes as paintings, or right now I'm working on a series of life-size tapestries that are digitally woven, and then I go into it with hand embroidery and hand beading and embellishment to make it extra.
That sounds impressive. Sounds like you have a lot of patience.
Yeah. It's funny because in reality I don't think I'm that patient, but the longer something takes to make, the more likely I am to do it. So if it doesn't take 7,000 hours, tiny little paintbrushes, or the smallest increments of something possible, then I'm like, it's too easy, I don't want to do that.
What did you expect to see? Did you have any expectations going into the show, or when you heard that the title was Food for Thought, did that make you think of anything?
It didn't. I mean, well, the first thing it made me think of was, I was like, why are they choosing me to be the juror for this? My artwork has nothing to do with food. But no, I had no idea what was going to be sent my way, because it's such a broad topic, but something that we all have a personal relationship with. So I was just excited for all the possibilities of the breadth of what artists can conceive of and what they work on regularly that has to do with food and our relationship to it.
Was there anything specific you were looking for when you were selecting the works?
I am a giant fan of craftsmanship, and I know it's a little bit of a bias, but when artists really take pride in what they're doing and master what it is they're doing and show that they have this amazing skill, I'm a sucker for it. And then on top of that, once you've got the skill, to also be able to get across an idea or an emotion, or to have the viewer leave with a feeling that they've imbued in that piece of artwork. That's what I was looking for. This is Panthro, everybody.
Oh, so cute.
He is very, very much a mama's boy.
Very friendly.
Very friendly.
So you mentioned you were looking for detail and craftsmanship and a message or an impression when you picked the show. Were you looking for more of the same thing or something slightly different when you selected the awards?
I think that the pieces that I selected each touch upon a different aspect of what the show statement was about. So each of them kind of pulled on a different connotation or direction that relationship with food and family and gathering and that entire like memory of eating and cooking and shopping and everything like that. And therefore they weren't supposed to be competing for the same concept. I tried to pull something from all of the different concepts that was put into the open call.
I asked around the office if anybody had any, questions that they wanted to ask. And one of the questions we came up with was, did looking at the show make you hungry?
The one piece really made me want donuts. Like, oh my gosh, almost sent my husband out to get me donuts. But at the time, the only thing that was open was Dunkin' Donuts, and that wasn't enough. I wanted it to be something incredibly decadent and sticky. And Providence has some amazing donut shops that make the best donuts. And so I couldn't have them. And so I just let the feeling pass. But yeah, yeah, it definitely made me hungry. And but not for like the healthy stuff. It made me want all of the things that you're not supposed to eat by the time you're in your 40s, and but still indulge in every once in a while, because who can say no to yummy things?
Right? The stuff that tastes good.
Exactly. Give me the fat, the sugar, the salt. Like, that's what makes the world go round.
Exactly. Speaking of the pieces, let's get into the awards. All right.
Like so many of us, my relationship with food is very complicated. It's something in our lives that permeates every emotional facet of existence. It's something to be enjoyed or hidden. It can cause a feeling of shame, joy, or disgust. It can bring us up memories or create new ones. We celebrate it, protest it, travel great lengths to get our hands on it, spend years learning how to master it. Food, for all its good and bad, is life. There were so many beautiful submissions, thought-provoking, humorous, memory-inducing, politically relevant pieces of art, each one. It was very difficult to narrow it down to these few pieces, but hopefully the show causes you to have the same gamut of reactions and you enjoy seeing my thought process as I pulled the pieces together.
All right, so let's announce the awards. We'll start with the honorable mentions.
Excellent. So I chose the next three pieces for honorable mention because they each touched on the more not common, but the infinitely universal relationships to food, particularly in like the past few years. So I chose this piece, Déjeuner sur Zoom, because as an artist during the pandemic, I really identified with this lack of community, this lack of being able to gather and share with my friends and family. And then on top of that, making art over online, like over Zoom. I did a couple photo shoots with people via Zoom, and it's just not the same. And nothing about it was the same. And God, I hope it's not really our new normal, because I don't ever want to have to do that again. This piece really touched upon that absolute loss of human connection and interaction, and especially over meals. And I cannot imagine how hard that was for people that were in their homes alone. You know, I was lucky enough to have a partner that I wasn't sick of looking at after 24 months, but this was a universal trauma that we all get to live with for the rest of time. And God, fingers crossed we never have to do it again. I missed having friends over for dinner so much. And at the time, I was in the middle of renovating my apartment. And so we didn't have a kitchen for all of the pandemic. So for 2
Oh,
years, me and my spouse lived off of a hot plate, and it was torture. Like, it was absolutely.
all right. So let's go on to the next one then.
This is the one that made me want the donuts. Do Not Share has all of that tactile mouth feel. You look at it, you want to eat those donuts. And then when you realize it's acrylic paste and modeling paste, you're like, how is that possible? Like, that you can see the shine of the frosting and the different textures of the sugar and the fat, and they're like, how could that not be real? But at the same time, it just brings up all of those memories and all of those guilt and pleasure and mixed emotions you have when you do stuff like buy a bunch of donuts and eat them by yourself. Because even if you meant to bring them to wherever and share them, they're just so good and you can't stop yourself. And you wind up sitting in your car going, why did you do that? Oh my God, I hate you for doing that. But it was so worth it. And I think that Lorena, you did an excellent job bringing up all of that complex love-hate relationship we all have with delectable treats that we're not supposed to have, or that we're supposed to share with people, and then we don't.
Especially if you're all alone in your apartment.
Exactly, during COVID.
All.
And they'll only deliver 12 donuts at a time. Therefore, what are you going to do?
I thought these were real donuts at first. I was
Me too. And it wasn't until I looked at the materials and I was like, how is that not real donuts? Like, how did she make the chocolate covered glazed donut look so like matte chocolate versus the ones that are obviously like sugar glazed? Like, how the materials are so fantastic.
Because real donuts aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got like, a little mark here and there, and she's captured that really well. It's it's impressive.
Yeah, agreed. Like, back to that craftsmanship, like really amazing craftsmanship gets me every time.
Combine that with donuts and you're a goner.
Oh, exactly. I didn't have a chance.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
This piece I chose it because it's that rare, beautiful piece of artwork where initially it didn't catch my eye. I'm going to admit it. It wasn't one that jumped out at me and was like, this is a beautiful piece of artwork. But I kept coming back to it because I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was like, is it wrought iron gate? Is it a butterfly? Is it ferns? Like, what is this a picture of? And then it finally all coalesced. And I was like, oh, it's a stack of saute pans that are ready for dinner service. And that abstract beauty, I was blown away by. Like, it's so hard as an artist to distill an image down to its minimal essence and still have it be unrecognizable and recognizable at the same time. So I wish I could see this one in person, because I'd love to see the deeper textures in it and be able to get up close versus standing far away, where it all comes back together, and see how that dynamic plays out in reality.
I think this one's really fascinating. I had no idea that it was a saucepan until you said so. And as you're listing like butterfly, fern, iron gate, I'm like, yeah, I see all of these.
Yeah, it could be. It's limitless on what it could be. And then even once you know what it is, it still goes back and forth between its potential and where it's grounded in reality. Like, it's a pretty awesome piece.
It is. And someone had come in and asked about it the other day. So I emailed the artist asking, what does textiles mean? And she actually came back. She replied and said that it was a photograph that had been digitally printed on cotton in black and white. It was a photograph that had been she printed the photograph on cotton and used a mix of, I think, hand stitching and machine stitching to enhance it. Shall we go to the next one?
Sure.
All right. I think we're gonna start in the first, second, and third, and we've got the third place up next.
For the third place award, I chose White Onions by Gloria Tseng Fisher. And I chose this one because of the calm, peaceful memories it brought up for me. Farmers market, sunshine, fall days at my grandparents', or an illustration in a well-loved cookbook rendered in the cool tones and impeccable brushstrokes. Watercolor is one of those mediums that I've always struggled with. Even though I use it in my drawings and paintings, it's something that I'm always afraid of pushing it too far, and everything comes out kind of washy, and I just struggle. It's a hard medium to master. And this painting has everything that's beautiful about watercolors ability. It's got the washy, cool tones and still beautifully rendered darks and lights. And you can really kind of almost smell these onions and feel that they just came out of the ground and are ready to be part of family dinner at your grandparents'. I really loved it.
I love hearing the story you made from a painting of onions.
That's what it brings up to me. Like,
I was ready to sit down and enjoy that dinner.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of, I don't have a Italian nonna, but I imagine my Italian nonna is going to turn that into the most beautiful sauce ever, and it's going to be delicious. Like, I can't wait.
It's going to be so good.
Yeah. How could it not be with those beautiful onions?
Right? It might taste a bit like paper, but it happens.
A little bit healthier than the donuts from a few minutes ago, which will taste a little bit like plastic, but
everything in moderation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's go on to the second place.
Talking about the pieces of art that can share some stories. So again, this love of my craftsmanship, that's what originally drew me to this piece. But what really stuck it in my mind was that looking at it, I just imagined an entire story, and from the tension that seems to be building between the pairs. Like, what game are they playing? Are the two pairs ganging up on the one pair that's standing up for itself? Or maybe they're all laughing, or are they criticizing the one pair, or is that pair telling them a great story and they're just riveted and leaning in on every word? And then it got me thinking about, like, how many family dinners have I felt like that in front of my parents, even though my parents are wonderful people? How many situations have you been, or I been, each of these pairs, and like how that dynamic is being showed just between three pairs, like, and all of the things I can imagine as the viewer that makes you want to know what the artist was thinking. Again, I was really amazed that those are cast pairs on top of this beautifully woodworked tabletop. I do have a question though. Is it a photograph of the sculpture, or is it the sculpture itself in the show?
I was just realizing that was labeled incorrectly. It is actually bronze and wood.
Okay, that's what I thought. I could have sworn it when I was juried.
Sorry.
It said it was cast bronze and wood.
Dimensions are 42 inches tall, and then the table is 12 by 12.
Yeah, so that also puts it, 42 inches is pretty tall. And so that makes it a very, it's not so much of you as the viewer really looking down on the pairs, but it's closer to this personal level of by your face almost, depending on how tall you are. And that's also really interesting. Like the imaginary story I create for this piece, I just find it infinitely fascinating because it could be anything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
so
I thought the same. But then I mean, it's not enough squares, but on top of that, you're like, what's the game that they're at? Like, what is the story between these three pairs?
a game of life. Reading those titles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love when you have like more questions going away than coming in.
Yeah. Well, it's like the saute pans, like it
Exactly.
conjures up so much possibilities in the artist's intention, and you're going to sit there and wonder about it for years.
Would you like to announce the first place winner?
For first place, I chose 6 Key 8 because it plays on one of my biggest fears, and that's color blindness. Like, as a artist, how do you function when you can't see color? And although, like, as a woman, the likelihood of me having color blindness is pretty slim, it's always been something I've been completely obsessed with. And I would take those online color tests constantly because there are a couple shades of coral and turquoise that I don't see very well. And so I was always like, oh, I'm gonna wind up colorblind somehow. And recently I have MS, and I have some eye nerve, some whatever. I have some eye nerve damage, and my ophthalmologist pointed out that I am going colorblind, and I am losing my red green shift ability to see those colors perfectly. And I was crushed, absolutely crushed. And then I'm looking through these images on my computer, picking ones for the show. And my husband is sitting over my shoulder, and he goes, "Why is there no number in that one?" And I was like, "What do you mean there's no number in that one?" And he was like, "I don't see the number in that one." And I'm like, "You're colorblind. Oh my God, you're colorblind." He had no idea. No idea. And for the past 4 years, we've like had these weird little arguments about, is that thing red or orange? Is that thing blue or green? And he's always like, completely, no, it's green. It's green. It's green. I love that green shirt on you, and it's blue. And and I just assumed it was me because my doctors just told me I am slightly colorblind, and it turns out he really is colorblind. And it turned into this like absolute moment of, this is all of my artistic fears, irrational artistic fears. And it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's not a big deal. It just is. And obviously, he's not an artist, but he gets along just fine, not being able to see that my shirt's not green, or that light is not blue, or whatever. And it'll be okay, even if I really do go fully colorblind, and everything will be all right. Like, it's not a big deal. Some people have it and some people don't. And I found that just the entire story. At first, I liked the story because I thought it was these pieces because I thought they were funny, but then it turned into something incredibly personal and highly entertaining that I had to just celebrate it in every form I could. So I made it the best piece in the show.
I was wondering if anyone was going to discover that they were colorblind through this piece.
My husband.
And it happened.
It explains so much. Like, see, in a way, this is like artwork that causes you to discover something about yourself and about those around you. Like, talk about social justice and interaction in a way. Like, this is a learning experience.
It is. Well, Katie, I would like to say thank you very much for
Thank you.
being the juror and for recording this juror talk twice. Uh, I had a lot of fun talking to you, and I hope everyone enjoys hearing your thoughts behind the show and what went into picking the show and about all the pieces. And
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for giving me this honor. This was so much fun. I'm so glad I got to be a part of it. It was a joy.
I am so glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
I hope that everyone enjoys the show and has a fantastic beginning of fall.